Odalys kneeling on her kitchen floor, phone in hand, mascara streaked. A child's small voice echoes in flashback. Auntie, I saw Uncle Reinhardt kissing a lady in the parking lot. Odalys freezes mid-breath. Cut to black. I thought I had the perfect marriage. Then a 9-year-old girl destroyed it with one whispered sentence. And what I did next, no one saw coming. My name is Odalys, and for 12 years, I believed I was living the kind of life other people envied. I had a husband who kissed my forehead every morning before leaving for work, a 15-year-old son who still hugged me even though his friends thought that was uncool, and a home that smelled like cinnamon on Sunday mornings because that's when I baked. I want you to understand that before I tell you what happened, because I need you to know I wasn't naive. I was happy. Genuinely, foolishly happy. Reinhardt and I met when we were both broke and ambitious, back when love felt like enough to survive on. He became a successful architect. I built a quiet, steady life around our family. We weren't the couple who fought loudly or the couple who performed happiness for other people. We were just comfortable, real, or so I thought. Petronella had been with us for 6 years by then, not just as our housekeeper, but as family. She'd seen me cry over small things, laugh over nothing, burn dinner more times than I'd like to admit. Her daughter Inez was 9 years old, and she'd wait for her mother after school in our living room, drawing pictures at my kitchen table, calling me auntie like it was the most natural thing in the world. I loved that little girl. I had no idea she was about to become the reason my entire world cracked open. Looking back now, I can see the cracks I refused to look at directly. Reinhardt's late meetings had multiplied over the last few months. His phone, once left carelessly on the counter, started disappearing into his pocket the moment he walked through the door. My best friend Fenelia asked me once gently over coffee, "Are you sure it's just work?" And I remember laughing. Actually laughing, because the thought felt so absurd. Not my husband, not after 12 years, not after everything we'd built. That evening, everything still felt ordinary. Bastien was upstairs doing homework. Reinhardt had texted he'd be home a little late. Petronella was finishing up in the kitchen, humming something under her breath. And then I heard the front door open and Inez walked in from the driveway where she'd been waiting for her mother. She didn't run to me like she usually did. She didn't ask for a snack or show me a drawing. She just stood there, quiet, staring at me with an expression I'd never seen on a child's face before, somewhere between confusion and fear. I remember thinking, before I knew anything at all, something is wrong. I just didn't know yet that it was my entire life. Inez walked over slowly, the way children do when they're carrying something too heavy for their small shoulders. She tugged at my sleeve, and I crouched down to her level, still smiling, still in that last innocent moment before everything changed. She leaned close to my ear, and in a whisper so soft I almost asked her to repeat it, she said, "Auntie, I saw Uncle Reinhardt kissing a lady in the parking lot by the grocery store." I want to tell you I reacted with wisdom, with grace, with the calm clarity of a woman who trusts herself. I didn't. I laughed, a short, nervous laugh that didn't match anything I was feeling inside. I told her she must have seen someone who looked like him, that Reinhardt was at work, that children sometimes mix things up. I said all of this while something inside my chest quietly began to cave in. That night, I lay next to Reinhardt, listening to him breathe evenly beside me, while my own heart pounded like it was trying to escape my body. I replayed the last few months on a loop, the late nights, the new cologne I didn't recognize, the way he'd angle his phone away from me at dinner. None of it had seemed significant on its own, but now each memory stacked on top of the last, like evidence I hadn't wanted to see. I called Fenelia the next morning, my voice shaking in a way I couldn't hide, and when I told her what Inez had said, she went quiet, the kind of quiet that told me everything before she even spoke. I didn't want to be the one to say it, she admitted softly, but I've wondered too. I started watching him differently after that. I checked the location history on the family car app, my hands trembling as I found the same address appearing again and again, a shopping plaza across town, one we never had a reason to visit together. When I asked Reinhardt carefully, casually about his week, he became irritated almost instantly. "You're being paranoid," he snapped, not even looking up from his phone. And somehow, in that moment, I found myself apologizing for questioning the man who was quietly unraveling everything I thought was real. That became my secret rhythm for the next several days, smiling at dinner while my stomach twisted into knots, laughing at his jokes while calculating dates and receipts in my head. Locking the bathroom door just to cry without an audience, then wiping my face and walking back out like nothing had happened at all. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to find out exactly how right that little girl had been. I told Reinhardt I was visiting Finelia that evening. Instead, I drove to the plaza the tracking app kept pointing to, parked far enough away that my car wouldn't be noticed, and waited. I remember my hands were steady on the wheel, which surprised me. I think some part of me had already accepted the truth before my eyes had to. I didn't wait long. I watched him get out of his car, and for a moment my heart wanted to believe there was still an innocent explanation. Then I saw her, a woman I didn't recognize, walking toward him with the easy familiarity of someone who'd done this many times before. He reached for her waist, she laughed at something he said, and then he kissed her. Not a rushed, guilty kiss, but a slow, comfortable one, like it was something they'd earned the right to do in public. I don't remember opening my car door. I don't remember crossing the parking lot. I just remember my own voice, louder than I'd ever heard it, tearing through the evening air. "How long?" I screamed. "How long has this been going on, Reinhardt?" His face went pale. The woman, I would later learn her name was Solveig, stepped back, stunned, looking between us like she was only now understanding the full shape of the lie she'd been standing inside. Reinhardt reached for my arm, saying my name like that alone could undo what I'd just seen. And before I could stop myself, my hand connected with his face, the sound of it sharp and final in the quiet parking lot. "You don't get to touch me," I said, shaking, tears finally breaking free. "Not after this." He tried to explain, the way men like him always try to explain. "It's not what it looks like. It meant nothing. You're overreacting." Every word felt like gasoline on a fire that was already consuming everything I thought I knew about my life. I turned to Solveig, my voice cold now instead of loud. "Did you know he was married? Did you know he had a son at home?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her silence told me she'd known enough to feel guilty and not enough to feel responsible. I looked at Reinhardt one last time, really looked at him, and something inside me went still. Not calm, just still, the way water goes still right before it freezes completely. "We're done," I said, and I meant it in a way I'd never meant anything before. I walked back to my car alone, my legs trembling with every step, and drove home in silence, tears streaming down my face the entire way, gripping the wheel like it was the only solid thing left in my world. I didn't cry in front of anyone again after that night. Something shifted in me on that drive home. Grief was still there, but underneath it, something colder and clearer had taken root. I wasn't going to fall apart in front of Reinhardt. I was going to think. The next morning, I moved like a woman running on autopilot, but my mind was working faster than it had ever had. I started pulling together everything I could find. Bank statements showing transfers I'd never questioned before, gifts charged to accounts I rarely checked, a hotel receipt tucked into the pocket of a jacket he'd forgotten to empty. I backed up messages from a shared cloud account we'd set up years ago for family photos, one he'd clearly forgotten still synced automatically. Piece by piece, I built a picture of exactly how long he'd been living two lives. I met with a lawyer that week, quietly, on my lunch break, telling no one but Finelia where I was going. I learned things about my own finances I hadn't fully understood before, that a portion of the business Reinhardt was so proud of had been built using trust funds tied to my late father's estate. I had more leverage than he ever imagined because he'd never bothered to imagine me as someone capable of using it. I told Bertrand, his own mother, the truth before he had the chance to spin it into something smaller than it was. I watched her face crumble, then harden with an anger I hadn't expected. "I raised him better than this," she said, gripping my hand. "Whatever you need, I'm standing with you." Her loyalty, when I needed it most, meant more than I could put into words. Reinhardt had a work dinner that Friday, a celebration for a project he'd been chasing for months, surrounded by colleagues and clients he desperately wanted to impress. I chose that moment. I walked in, calm and composed, and handed him the divorce papers in front of everyone he was trying so hard to look successful for. The room went silent. His hands shook as he opened the envelope, and I watched every ounce of control drain from his face. Solveig was there too. I hadn't planned that part, but fate apparently had its own timing. When she realized, in that same moment, that our marriage had never actually ended the way he'd told her it had, something broke in her expression. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She simply set down her glass, looked at him with something close to disgust, and walked out without another word. For the first time since that whispered warning in my kitchen, I felt something other than heartbreak. I felt power returning to where it belonged, with me. Months passed, and I want to tell you healing happened in one dramatic moment, but the truth is quieter than that. It happened in small pieces. The first morning I woke up in my new apartment and didn't reach for my phone to check where Reinhardt was. The first time Bastian laughed at dinner without that careful, watchful look he'd worn for weeks, like he was waiting for the ground to shift again. The first night I slept through until morning without my chest feeling tight. Reinhardt lost more than just our marriage, though I won't pretend I tracked his downfall out of anything but simple curiosity. Word travels in circles like ours. I heard the business partnership tied to my father's trust dissolved once the truth became public. His colleagues, the same ones who'd watched him unwrap divorce papers at his own celebration, weren't eager to keep building his empire with him. Solveig never spoke to him again after that dinner. Bertrand, his own mother, chose to spend more time with me and Bastian than with him, which I think hurt him more than anything else that happened. I thanked Petronella properly, sat her down, and told her what her honesty had meant to me, even though she hadn't asked for anything in return. And Inez, sweet, brave Inez, I made sure she knew, in whatever gentle way a 9-year-old could understand, that she hadn't caused any pain. She'd simply told the truth, and the truth had done the rest of the work on its own. I still think about how much courage that must have taken, whispering something so heavy into the ear of an adult she trusted. One evening, months later, I sat on my new balcony watching the sun go down, a cup of tea warming my hands, and I realized I felt something I hadn't expected to feel again so soon. Peace. Not the fragile, performed peace I'd worn like a mask during those last months of my marriage, but something real, something earned. Reinhardt showed up once, unannounced, standing at my door with the kind of apology men only offer once they've lost everything else. He asked if there was any chance, any small opening for us to try again. I looked at him for a long moment, searching for the anger I expected to feel, and found only calm instead. "No," I said simply, and I closed the door, not with anger this time, but with the quiet certainty of a woman who finally knew her own worth. Betrayal had tried to break me. Instead, it had shown me exactly how strong I'd been capable of being all along. Sometimes, the truth comes from the smallest voices. A child's innocence exposed what years of silence hid. I lost a marriage, but I found myself. If someone shatters your trust, don't shrink. Rise and let karma finish what they started.